next.
Never knew how complete love could be. She kissed me and said, baby, please go away.
Wake up, Lake County. Good morning, everybody. 7:20, 44 degrees. Temperatures going up to a balmy 65 today. I'm Steve Newman.
I'm Linda Uhas.
This segment of Wake Up Lake County is brought to you by the Manhattan Deli and Menor. Good food that's good for you. Home of those delicious, creative sandwiches. Yeah, there's some music from good old days gone by. Those are the Raspberries, in case you've been living under a rock. One of Cleveland's most beloved rock and roll bands. And in studio with us, the man who kept the beat, Jim Bonfanti, joining us along with wife Barb. Welcome, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, well, that was probably the song that put you guys on the chart, on the maps.
It was definitely the one. Actually was not our first single. I don't know if people remember that, but it was the second single. Don't Want to Say Goodbye was the first single. Right. So that was the one, though, that put us there. We got a gold record for it, and it was pretty.
And what year was that?
1972.
Wow.
Amazing,
not that long ago.
No,
not that long ago.
No.
Last
It
week.
still sounds
Just
good
trying
today.
to think, where were you
you know
in
what, that's
72 when you were
just hit
getting a
on
gold
something.
record?
You just hit on something. It still sounds good
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
That's the test of, great music, unlike some of these groups and artists and songs that, are here today, gone tomorrow. And
You won't even know their names.
No.
As big as they are.
all right, well, the Raspberries is a group that has, I guess, a long history attached to it, but a lot of people don't know how that history started. Eric Carmen is associated with the group, and a lot of people think that, he was the guy that put it all together, but that's not exactly true, because a lot of this had to do with you.
Well, it was actually Eric and I.
Right.
That was really the way it went. Eric, it was a great time back in the late 60s to be a musician around here. There was a lot of bands, a lot of places to play, a lot of talent. And, Eric was in, one of the other bands just like we were, But you got to know each other by playing the same venues and things like that. And, long story short, Eric kind of became a fan of some of what was then the choir, which was the Mods renamed, basically. Mm-hmm. But and when it was end of 1970 came around, and I decided I was not going to play anymore, Eric asked me if we wanted to put a band together, and I told him no, that I wasn't going to play. About 4 months later, I decided, maybe I'm not ready to. I'm not ready for civilian life yet, so I called Eric up and I said, let's make a band, and we started. Actually, it was Eric and I, and Barb was there for literally all those conversations that went on for months.
Now Barb is your high school sweetheart, too.
Yes, she is.
How long have you guys been married?
Forever. 41 years. We were married before there was marriage.
And you're still married because marriage doesn't exist anymore.
I hear you.
A beautiful
Well, in some
example
minds,
of it.
yeah, exactly.
Beautiful example.
So Barb, what did you think when Jim, said, I'm quitting, I'm done?
Well, actually, a couple times during our marriage, he did that, and I pretty much didn't believe it because I know it's in his blood, and that's just how he is. But he's got to come to his own, decision to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. So,
It's still that way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how artists are.
Well, I wasn't talking about that part of it.
All right, so you guys put the group together in theory, and then came the time to get the guys together. How did you select to Wally and Dave?
That was a very long process. Eric and I had worked with Wally, and we knew that Wally was the guy. Wally was the guy that we wanted to play lead guitar, so he was the first person that we talked to after we finally, we had, like I say, months, like you say, of theory and planning and what we wanted to be, what we wanted to look like. A lot of things was all talked about for hours and hours and hours. So Wally was the first guy, and then the bass player actually that we got was John Alexic, who was another Euclid grad.
Right, you went to Euclid High School, we should let people know.
I did,
You and Barb both.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we just graduated. And we got John in the band, and that was 70. October of 70 is when we first played. And we played for 3 months that way, and then John quit the band because in the meantime, while that was happening, Dave was still in Vietnam. He was in the Army yet. And when John quit the band, we decided that Dave would be a good fit. And I wrote Dave a letter because that was before email and Facebook on paper.
How did we do
Yeah,
that?
I actually wrote it on paper. Can you imagine that?
And you could spell, and you still did it in cursive, right?
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
you did
yeah.
print and block letters.
That's right. Exactly. Well, I called it writing.
What do they call it that they don't?
Longhand
Yeah.
or whatever. Anyway, so I sent Dave a letter and told him about this band, and we were doing pretty good already, locally. And when Dave came home in April, because we played for 3 months in 1971, from would have been January through April as a three-man band, and our very first gig was at East Lake North.
Really?
As a three-man band.
East Lake North.
Yep.
As the Raspberries?
It was just Wally, Eric, and I. We played three-man while we waited for Dave, and that was our first one, as a matter
So
of fact.
did you do any originals back then, or was it all covers?
No, it was all covers, and we hadn't really started working on our originals yet, but it started to happen right after that because shortly thereafter we did the album, later that year, our first album.
So who wrote most of the music?
Listen to the music?
No, who wrote most of the music?
Most of the music. Listen to the music. I have no idea. Everybody wrote. I even wrote a few songs that never made it on an album, but everybody in the band wrote, and we would submit. Like say if we wanted to have 12 songs on an album, we would submit like 15 or 20 songs, between Dave, Wally and Eric wrote some, Dave and Eric wrote some, they wrote some individually, submit all those albums for the album, and we would then, the producer would figure out kind of which ones we were going to use. It was kind of his call.
And that was what, Jimmy
Einer.
Jimmy Einer?
Mm-hmm.
Now, is he the same Jimmy that's on American Idol?
No, that's Jimmy Iovine. And I can tell you a funny story about Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy Iovine actually worked at the studio when we were recording and used to get us pizza.
No
He was
kidding.
a runner.
He was a runner.
He was a runner.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had totally forgotten about that, and Eric reminded me about that when he first started showing up on American Idol stuff, and I had totally forgotten all about it, but it was like, wow, I forgot all about that.
So was it magic the first time you guys all got together and played an original composition after it had been written? Did you guys know that we're onto something here?
I don't think so. I think we were just doing what we wanted to do. Because we had all been in bands before that wrote originals and we played them. And, our hope was that we would get, a good signing, a good label, and we would be successful, which ultimately happened. But I think in the beginning, you're just excited to work on them. And, of course, you think they're great, and, you look for, you played them locally and you look for, fan reaction and that kind of stuff. So it was good.
All right, so the first time that you played the song that we opened up our segment with, and it was done locally, live. Where was that? Go all the way.
Well, that's a good question for me to remember, and I probably don't know the exact answer, but it was probably like at the Agora or somewhere, because we played at the Agora every single Sunday. And
I remember that.
Yeah. And by
I wasn't of age, but I remember that.
Yeah, but you got in anyway, I heard. But that place was where we worked up all our original. We rehearsed there on Mondays and Tuesday nights. We just got locked in and stayed there all night and worked on all our originals. So I would say that would be probably a good bet on where we maybe debuted, go all the way, But it would have been obviously somewhere locally here, and.
I remember the Chesterland Hullabaloo was another local Raspberries semi-regular spot.
That was a good place. We used the guy that ran
Chuck Parsons,
Don
Parsons,
the greatest guy in the world.
Yep.
I mean, just was a super place. There were a lot of good places to play. Around at that time. Now, not so much.
All right, well, when we come back, I'm going to ask you a couple questions and give you a chance to think about it over the break here. Like, what is the most least known fact about the Raspberries? And if you had to do it differently, what would you do differently? And then we're going to talk about Ride, your new musical project with Jeff Sukup and some of the other musicians. And we're going to debut the title CD release the title track to Curtain Call when we come back. So keep it right here. We're talking to Jim Bonfanti, wife Barb, about Raspberry and life maybe as a rock and roll widow, so to speak. I'm Steve Newman.
I'm Linda Uhas. You're listening to Wake Up Lake County. We are the talk of the town, your favorite radio station, AM 1330 WELW.
If we were on time, we wouldn't have to be worried tonight. Baby, I wanna be with you so bad.
Wake up, Lake County. Good morning, everybody. 7:36, 44 degrees, sunny skies today. Temperature's going to be beautiful, 60 plus today. I'm Steve Newman.
I'm Linda Uhas.
This segment of Wake Up Lake County brought to you by the Business Symposium at Lakeland Community College on Wednesday, May 15th. Mark that date. You can learn from experienced entrepreneurs. Just visit lakelandcc.edu/EC. In the studio with us right now, we have Jim Bonfanti, drummer from the Raspberries, and wife Barb. Jim, before I get back to you, I got to ask Barb, what's it like being the wife of a really hot rock star?
Oh, boy.
Careful.
I mean,
Careful.
how'd you deal with like all the groupies? Because, you know, I remember seeing these guys play, and it was kind of like it was almost there. There were these girls and fans that would just throw themselves at the guys, wait for him afterwards. How'd you cope with that?
Well, good question. I always knew that he was probably the straightest arrow in the band.
Is that saying something?
Well, yeah. But I remember when they would go out of town, for instance, Eric would come back and he'd just be laughing. And I'd say, what's so funny? And he said, you know, everybody else would be looking at you know, Playboy magazines and whatnot. And he says, I look over and there's Jim with his Field and Stream. So,
True.
so
And Jim, by the way, still is an avid natural outdoors guy, a hunter and what have you.
yes,
so,
he is.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew that I was okay. I mean, I trusted him, and
Or that I was goofy, you know, one of the two.
There you go. All right, Jim. Interesting story. You got married 1971, and it took place in Euclid at the VFW Hall. Elks Club. Take it from there.
Well, I mean, I don't know where to start. We got married, yes, and
we were puppies.
we were very young, and which is fine. But and at the wedding, the whole band was my wedding party. Mm-hmm. My brother Primo was my best man, and we actually sat in with Dick Soja's band and played some tunes at the wedding. You know, we played probably 3 or 4 Beatles songs, I think, and we played Jailhouse Rock, Barbara just reminded me, which we liked to play. We did a couple Elvis songs covers back then. That was a good one. But you know, and then from there, you know, it just kind of, we did what we did, and we got lucky enough to have labels come in and hear us, which we did at JB's in Kent. Mm-hmm. And we had 3 or 4 labels. I think we had Columbia Capitol, Epic, and somebody else. You know, bigger labels at the time. And you know, we ended up on Capitol, which thrilled us because you know, being huge Beatle fans, all of us, that was their label, and we thought better place. You know.
So you ended up then successful after the album hit, and you toured the country, you toured the world. What was it like going from Mentor, Ohio, Euclid, Ohio, to all
Germany.
of this, to the world stage, if you will, almost overnight?
It was,
especially at that age.
It was great. I mean, I have some great memories of that whole time. You know, to be able to do that was, you know, I mean, you have to consider yourself extremely lucky that it happened. I mean, there's a lot of work. I mean, everybody worked hard. You had to have certain things fall your way. But in the end, I mean, I guess there was nothing like walking on stage to play Carnegie Hall headlining. You know, now Carnegie Hall is not the place that it was then, but it was a big deal.
It was still Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, it was still a big deal then,
Sure.
you know. But to do that, and you know, I remember walking into the L.A. Coliseum. We played there with Cher, the Bee Gees. I think it was a big festival kind of thing. I think Stevie Wonder was on that show. I can't remember. Just walking in on the field and how tiny you feel because it's so massive.
Sure,
you know, there was like 100,000 people there, and or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's a big place.
It's huge. Those I remember those things. And you'll never forget them. I mean, it's hard for people to understand maybe how it feels, but it's amazing.
All right. Well, we could go on and on and on, and we'll have to definitely have you back. But tell us about your new group, Ride.
Well, it's actually I'm part of that.
Right.
It started off as a solo project with Jeff Sukup, who I've known for since.
Yeah, everybody in Lake County knows Jeff.
Yeah,
Sukup.
Jeff's an amazing singer, and so he's been writing for 10 years. And we actually were in a band with Paul Sidoti and did a CD before the Raspberries reunion stuff, but because the Raspberries reunion came around, it kind of blew, so that went away. So Jeff, decided he wanted to work on some stuff, so he got hooked up with Jim Wirt, who's really platinum producer with Hoobastank. He did Hoobastank and Incubus and some other people. And he recorded downtown at Crushstone Studios, and it turned into more of a band. So, we have a group, and I'm the drummer, and the rest of the players would be Jeff. Jim Wirt actually is going to play bass, who's the producer, and our guitar player is Andrew Cushman. I don't know Andrew very well, but he's an amazing guitar player, which you'll hear on the track. But so that's going to be released in July, and he's getting all that together. But I figure it's all done, and it was really fun to do. And
right,
I was glad to be in the studio.
Why don't we take a listen? This actually is going to be the first time this song is aired anywhere.
Exactly.
All right, this is called
Curtain Call.
Curtain Call, featuring Jim Bonfanti on drums. The group is called Ride, and this is their debut CD title track to Curtain Call.
Pick your poison. Little drops of pain fall slowly on my tongue. It brings such joy to your face. Your party's just begun. This is how you live. Wash up in the way to betray, thinking that you'll do great things, surviving another day. Choose your weapon, the grounds of greed, thinking that you'll do great things, never caring about someone else's needs. When it's your curtain call, are you gonna stumble? Are you gonna fall? When it's your curtain call, live a life that no one will
Curtain Call, brand new CD coming out from Jim Bonfanti's new group, drummer for the Raspberries, now with a group called Ride here. When is that coming out?
It'll be this summer. I think July is the target date. It's kind of putting the finishing touches on things, and I'm pretty sure that Jeff has they have a Facebook page for Ride, I think. Or if they don't, it's going to be shortly. I know that's
just
in the
RIDE.
RIDE.
All right,
yeah.
before we go, we got to put up for the event that you've got coming up this weekend, Boaters for a Cure. Give us a quick rundown of what that is.
Go ahead, Barb.
Well, it's we're having Dinner for a Cure this weekend. It's our annual dinner that we have to benefit breast cancer organizations in the area. And I'm happy to say the event is sold out.
Congratulations. We'll be
Yes.
there. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
Yes. So we're looking forward again to a crazy evening full of fun and some incredible food. I was making spätzle most of the weekend.
Wow, she could cook too, Jim. I see they stayed together 41 years.
I was worried after our first meal, but it worked.
He had reason to be worried. Believe me, it was awful.
It turned out okay, though.
41 years later, yeah, I guess it did. Wow, so that's this weekend, and we're glad to hear that it's sold out.
Yes.
So if you didn't get in, next year.
Absolutely.
All right. Jim, what do you want to leave us with in terms of a memoir or one of the most memorable moments that you remember about life as a rock musician back then, as the Raspberries, the choir, and some of the other groups you were in?
I think that my most memorable moment, actually is more current, was the opening of the reunion show at House of Blues.
Yep. Yep.
The electricity between the audience on the outside of the curtain and us behind the curtain waiting was just...
You could feel it.
Oh, it was the best.
It was amazing.
Absolutely the best.
Did it like just put you right back into?
Yeah. Yeah.
Close your eyes and you would just imagine you were back at the L.A. Coliseum, for example.
Yeah, I said to a couple different people during interviews that the band never sounded better, and if I closed my eyes, you could think you were playing in 1973 or 72, except it sounded better. I mean,
you know what? That's what everybody I've talked to that was at that said.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the lovely Linda's son, Derek, was part of many of your...
Oh, yeah, he was. He was my man. He was my go-to.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that about the lovely Linda. Yeah,
They're known fact.
Your son, Derek, now living in Boston, was a
Jim's,
quasi-member
drum tech,
I'm telling
of
you.
the Raspberries.
Yep.
Yeah, especially when they were on tour around the country.
Yep. He went everywhere with me.
All right, Jim, we appreciate you dropping by, and wish you had a drum kit here, so you can take us out on a solo.
us
Oh,
out.
yes.
No.
They call Jim the human
Drum machine.
drum machine because his
He's
timing
just a
is that
metronome. He's
impeccable.
just-
You just can't
and
miss a beat.
powerful.
Yeah, you should see this
not
guy.
afraid to hit him.
Jim, I'll tell you what, I wish I had your talent. Thanks for joining us this morning, Jim.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Jim Bonfanti from the Raspberries, talking about a little rock history and the new project called Ride with Jeff Sukup. And who are the other band members?
It's going to be Jim Wirt, Andrew Cushman, myself, and Jeff.
And Jeff Sukup. The group
And there
is
could
called
be a
Ride.
keyboard player we bring in here. But we don't know that yet.
And of
Be
course,
watching.
Barb, thanks for joining us and keeping him around for all these years.
Oh, my pleasure. Believe me.
All right, 7:50, 49 degrees, and we come back. We're going to give you a chance to go to the movies, courtesy of Atlas Cinemas. So keep it right here. I'm Steve Newman.
I'm Linda Uhas. You're listening to Wake Up Lake County on the Talk of the Town, AM 1330, WELW.